It is a first down. Pirates.
You can paint this one purple. What an incredible win by the ECU Pirates.
Welcome into Blackbeard's Alley, a Pirate football podcast. As we're live with you here on a Monday afternoon, Jason Tyndall and I are catching up with the longtime play-by-play voice of the Tulsa Golden Hurricane to preview Thursday night's matchup between the Pirates and Tulsa, and that is Bruce Howard. Bruce, we appreciate your time.
Hey, no problem, and great to hear Purple Haze by Jimi Hendrix coming in. That's outstanding, and obviously getting a chance to hear Jeff Charles again was pretty special too on your intro.
Yeah, before we, I know I'm kind of putting you on the spot here, but since you brought up Jeff with that open, any thoughts or from down through the years and your relationship that you had with the voice?
Yeah, I mean, nothing against Jim Zoki, and I forget the guy's name that does basketball, but, Jeff Charles was the voice of the Pirates, and he was, I consider him a really close friend. We talked a lot off air, off season, and just a great guy. And one of the things I remember before he passed away, I think we went to East Carolina and he was showing me pictures and diagrams and schematics of his new baseball team that he had purchased, an independent league baseball team. He had gotten into professional wrestling up in Michigan, and he had just bought an indie baseball team and was going to run it somewhere in Indiana or Ohio or someplace like that. And, it sounded to me like he was a guy that just was pretty restless, had to have something going at all times. But what a great friend, what a great person. Yeah,
had that love of sports and a love of entertainment. I was going to mention that with wrestling, like you did. He and Clip Brock down through the years on Pirate Radio have talked about that quite a bit. But diving into this matchup, Trey Lamb, first year there in Tulsa and coming over from ETSU, just 1 year there with the Bucks, but he took them to the brink of a massive upset last year against what ended up being the FCS champion, as it so often has over the last 15 to 20 years, North Dakota State. And prior to that, had done a really nice job at Gardner-Webb. Comes from an unbelievable coaching family. His uncle Bobby, with Furman, Mercer, and now Anderson. They picked up a big win in the D2 ranks over Lenore-Ryan. I just saw that. And then you also just had a tremendous father of Trey Lamb down in the high school coaching ranks in the state of Georgia. And then he has a cousin, Taylor, that's a quarterback's coach at UVA. Jason and I were talking about that the other night. So needless to say, the love of football and coaching the game runs deep in the Lamb family.
Yeah, there's no question. His dad, Hal, won 3 state championships or has won 3 state championships. His grandfather won 3 state championships as a high school coach, and then the other relatives that you had mentioned. But hey, there's no question, that he is a guy that has earned it. He's very young. He's very confident without being cocky. He's honest as the day is long. He'll say, "Hey, I made a bad play call." So he's really been a joy to work with so far, and certainly you wouldn't know it by looking in the guy's eyes. They're 2-4 at this point, and he's really doing a terrific job. I think he'll be very successful. Here at TU.
Bruce, with that being said, with him coming in this first year, just help our fans out, understand what changes have you seen in the program under his leadership and guidance. And I will say the Lamb family is important to me. I've known them for many, many years and had a chance to play against Coach Lamb when he was coaching at Furman back in the early 90s. And I'll just say we were up 28-0 at halftime at Appalachian State, and kind of running our mouth to the homecoming crowd, and we ate crows. We got on the bus to drive back to Boone with a big fat L after they came back on us. So I'll leave it at that.
Yeah, he's a good coach, and what he has changed more than anything is kind of the attitude. I mean, this was a kind of a program that frankly had been beaten down a little bit, and he's turned that around. And that's the first thing is you can just tell the guys have bought in, not only the ones that that stayed, and you have to kind of re-recruit those guys and pull some of them out of the portal, but also the new guys coming in. They've been able to buy into the system. They've been through a few hard times because of a tough schedule, but he's still got them ready to go. And I think they'll be ready to play on Thursday night. And he's the major reason why. He's kind of all of that in a bag of chips in terms of the whole package. The guy that has good media savvy, guy that knows how to coach his football team. He's got a good young staff that's really energetic. So it's fun to watch right now.
Taking a look at this team offensively, Coach Lamb likes to play fast. He likes to run the football. At quarterback, you've had two guys see significant action. Baylor Hayes, who I believe came over from ETSU. He's the son of Walker Hayes, the country music star. And then Kirk Francis, who Pirate fans are definitely familiar with, that was already there in Tulsa. What can you tell us about the signal callers thus far?
Well, it's interesting. You mentioned they want to play with pace, and that's the situation with Trey. I think they're averaging, 78 plays per game, something like that. He was asked today at the press conference about, hey, are you where you want to be in terms of the number of plays and how fast you're playing? And he goes, no, scoring points is the most important thing. So while they are playing with some pace, they do get bogged down in the red zone quite frequently or inside the 30. And so that's something that he's aiming to change. Now, the two quarterbacks, he announced today at the press conference, Baylor Hayes indeed will start the game against East Carolina on Thursday night. He's a guy that, younger than Kirk. Kirk Francis, a little more experience, has seen the bullets fly a little bit more, but Baylor Hayes has kind of got that it factor, plus he's mobile. And if the offensive line breaks down in some way, he can sometimes make a play happen. So they're going with him for this game, and we'll see how that turns out. But two different quarterbacks. Kirk is more of a pocket guy that can run a little bit. Baylor is more of a guy that, if he doesn't necessarily see his first or second progression, he'll zip out of there and try to make something happen, either, with his feet to throw in a different situation or with his feet just to get a first down or move the chains, that kind of thing. So that's the difference between the two quarterbacks. And, they're going with Baylor in this particular game.
Yeah, obviously, Coach Slam has no lack of familiarity with East Carolina bringing the running Bulldogs of Gardner-Webb in just a couple of years ago. And there's some coaches who are on a text thread outside of the message boards and things like that I was a part of. And we were all saying this is going to be tough for ECU. And Gardner-Webb just kind of got behind it and just snowballed at that point. Just, talent differentiation between the, 1AA and our team. But we were well aware of his, ability to coach a football program and what he could do and the problems he could give us at ECU. Coming into this game, do you think that's an advantage for Coach Lamb, that he understands East Carolina and some of the battles we've had in the past, not only with him, but also with Tulsa over the years? It seems like we've always had kind of slugfest between our two programs. Yeah,
I mean, it might be an advantage, but it's also an advantage for ECU and that they know the history of this as well. Obviously, it's funny how these two head coaches have kind of run some parallel paths. You mentioned Lenore Ryan, and I believe Coach Blake once coached at Lenore Ryan. And it seems like every time I look at resumes of some of these coaches, Lenore Ryan seems to jump in there somewhere along the way. I talked with Coach today about it at the press conference. That, you know what, you earned it. You came up through the Gardner-Webbs and the ETSUs, and so did Coach Blake. And Blake Harrell came through the same kind of system where he's not a blue blood guy. And, that's kind of refreshing to see. And I think when somebody is a non-blue blood guy and really earns it and comes up through the ranks like that, they really appreciate what they have, rather than some highfalutin assistant coach that comes down from Michigan to coach at Tulsa or coach, at a lower level. They think about maybe what they don't have, rather than what they have. And I think those coaches that kind of come up that way do a lot better job with what they have, because what they have is a lot more than what they used to have.
I couldn't agree more. I agree with you 100%. And I think that's part of the magic of these two coaching staffs. It wasn't that long ago Coach Harrell was just an assistant coach at Fuquay Arena High School here in the Raleigh area. So he's paid his dues and he's earned it, right? And just like Coach Lamb.
Yep, absolutely. And, I think that's kind of cool to see a couple of coaching staffs that are really hungry, and hopefully we'll see a great game. History says we'll see a great game because there have been some great ones in the past.
Amen.
Now, Bruce, before we move on from the signal callers, I mentioned Hayes and Francis. Hayes has seen more snaps and has attempted 126 passes to 88 for Francis, but I did notice that Hayes has been sacked 9 times as opposed to just 2 for Francis. Can you shed some light there?
I think part of that has to do with Tulane's defense.
Gotcha.
They got him 5 times. I think it was 5 times. And Tulsa's offensive line coming into that game in the first 4 games had only allowed 5 sacks. So all of a sudden, Tulane 5 sacks against him. But normally he's a little bit more mobile than that. But boy, they bottled him up. And you know what? Tulane's really good defense, and they just ran a guy at him almost every play. And as a young quarterback, you've got to adjust off of that, and I think he will. But that's kind of the reason he got sacked more. And our offensive line, really, the last 2 games have not had their best games, and so they've got to do a better job on that front 5.
So transitioning to the offensive skill talent, Zion Booker, Brody Foley, those 2 receivers, or receiver and a tight end. Foley being the tight end, they jumped out. Booker, 35 catches, 294 yards, just 8.4 per, but solid numbers. And then Foley, 6'6", 260 pounds at tight end, 12 catches for 220 yards, over 18 yards per reception, and 3 scores.
Yeah, he's Foley, first of all, it's been a very pleasant surprise because when he went to Indiana, and he transferred in from Indiana, when he went to Indiana, he played tight end there for whatever it was, 2 years, never threw a pass to him. He never received a single pass at Indiana. He also played on special teams. But point being, the Indiana coach called Trey the other day, and they got talking about, the tight ends and all that. And he says, "You're throwing to him?" And you bet we are. That's what Trey said. He had a broken play, 72-yarder. And that was a play that was made by Baylor Hayes. He rolled out to the left and was almost out of bounds, and he flipped it kind of over the onrushing defense, and the guy gets a 72-yarder out of that. The throw was only 10 yards. But at any rate, Foley has found the seams. He's really done a nice job of getting open and then making a guy miss, or at least breaking a tackle. So that's the reason that his percentage is so good and his yards per catch is so good. And Zion Booker is your classic slot receiver. Still looking for him to get kind of break open a little bit. I think he has a 36-yard reception on the year for a touchdown. But realistically, other than that, the wideouts have not been able to break the top off of this thing. 36 is the most that any wide receiver has gotten on any play as far as catching a pass. And Brody Foley has, I think, a 40-yarder and a 72-yarder as the tight end. So that's what they're looking for. They're looking for another guy. And that guy might be Micah Tease, who's played only 4 games for Tulsa, but his per game or per catch average is 19.1. So he's the guy that can maybe be that guy. Another guy that you probably haven't heard of is number 19, Grayson Tempest. And Tempest is a kid that was on the he was on the scout team about 2 weeks ago, and he kept beating the first team defense. And so finally they put him into a game, and he's done reasonably well, and he can get deep as well. So that's the aspect of the offense that Tulsa really wants to improve, is the downfield throwing. Problem is, though, your offensive line has to protect well enough. You have to probably keep a guy or 2 in there to chip in order to give your guy enough time to throw it downfield. That said, of the 2 quarterbacks, Kirk Francis is the better long ball thrower, and Baylor Hayes the better runner. So it's kind of the conundrum that Tulsa has at this point. They've got to find that nice little mixture to make their offense work.
When I was doing some prep for this call, Bruce, I noticed Grayson Tempest 2 catches for 84 yards. So even I can do the math on that. It's 42 yards a play. So I was going to ask you about him. But one thing that stands out to me though is obviously maybe the pass protection isn't that great right now for the team, as you mentioned, but you've got 3 backs averaging over 4.8 yards a carry. And if you can keep that momentum going, that starts to stress and strain the opponent on the defensive side, because now you're playing with you're running the clock, you keep the ball, as long as you don't turn it over. it starts changing the dynamics of the game. Has that been the case all year with your team, or is that something that's come on lately?
When they're successful, that's been the case. Unfortunately, both Tulane and Memphis are really good teams. I think Memphis's defensive average against the rush was 94. So, I mean, they're really good against the rush. So they were able to stop Tulsa's running game. Dominic Richardson, their leading rusher, less than 90 yards in both of those games. So they were not able to get him unlocked like they did in some of the earlier games. They had 147 in his first game. He had over 100 against Oklahoma State. So, I mean, he has had some games, and Tulsa's so much better when they can run the ball, obviously, with a little bit of balance. So, that's one of the important things as well. You have Richardson, and then, of course, A.J. Allen. And a youngster, freshman, Calvin Washington, might see some time in this game. He's got a little bit of shake with him. He's got a little bit of speed. So they may bring that element in as well at the running back position. So, yes, they want to run the ball, no question. And when you can run the ball, you take a little pressure off your redshirt freshman quarterback.
Bruce, can you do me a favor and just tell Coach Lamb to leave Calvin Washington at home? Then he can stay in Tulsa for.
No, I mean I'm not saying he's a secret weapon or anything, because I've seen him, all if you want to call it fall camp or preseason camp, and a freshman that, he's a guy that can get in that hole pretty quickly. So he may be an interesting little X factor in the game on Thursday. We'll see. The flip side of that is you get an experienced guy like Dominic Richardson in there, and he's a guy that'll pick up that blitz. He's a guy that'll make that block that he needs to make in certain situations. Young players don't do that as well.
Shifting over and taking a look at the Golden Hurricane defense, allowing something like 26 or 27 points per game. You did allow 40 plus to Navy, which is always a tough assignment. We know very well about that down through the years, unfortunately, as we see Jason's expression on the screen there. And then also, Memphis, we know how good they are this year. That was a 45-7 loss in the most recent outing for Tulsa. But, I look, you had that's a very respectable number at 26 points per game. They like to be very aggressive. A couple things stood out. Jaden Burnett, 6 sacks, and then also Elijah Green, 5 picks.
Yeah, those two guys have been outstanding. And Ray Coney, the middle linebacker, I don't know where Tulsa would be without him. He's got 64 total tackles. He's at least was the leader in the American Conference in total tackles. But yeah, it's interesting. Jaden Burnett has all of those sacks, and also Byron Turner is another defensive end, and they actually rotate the same position. And out of those two, you end up with what, 5.5, and 4.5. No, 6 sacks and 4.5 sacks between those two. So they're getting pretty good production out of that kind of right end position, if you will. But this is a defense that has looked good at times. I mean, yeah, if you take the 45 that Memphis scored and the 40 that Navy scored out of the picture, it's a pretty good defense, which is kind of the same as saying, I'm a pretty good pitcher, but I gave up 9 in the first inning and 0 the rest of the way, but we lost 9-2. So, I mean, as you've got to look at it a couple of ways, but when they're going up against offenses that are not as good as Memphis and not as good as, Tulane or Navy, I think they'll have more success. Now, that said, ECU is pretty darn good on offense. So I don't know what will happen in this game, but I know they'll show up, and I know they feel pretty good about the plan they're putting together.
Yeah, I listened to Coach Harrell's press conference earlier today, and he definitely highlighted both of those young men on as far as just super talented. I believe the 5 picks is possibly the lead in the country right now.
I believe it is, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, that's amazing.
And Elijah Green actually has dropped another one, and he's also had a couple of fumble recoveries. He actually had one right at his feet in the Tulane game, which would have stopped a drive. And he scooped it instead of just dropping on it, tried to scoop it, and he kicked it, and the ball ping-ponged around, and Tulane got it and scored on the next play. So as the defensive coordinator says, there's city fumbles and there's country fumbles. And the city fumble, where there are all sorts of people around, you drop on it. If it's a country fumble, you scoop and score. So I thought that was pretty funny. I'd never heard that before, but that's what our defensive coordinator tried to stress to Elijah Green after that play.
Well, I wish you had told me that about 16 years ago before I got out of coaching, because I would have stole that and used it. Because any good coach is a thief of somebody else's magic. So
there you go.
What we do. Yeah.
And there's no new ideas, and I certainly don't have any. But it's always good to relay what some of the smarter people say.
I agree with you.
One of the things that really hurt East Carolina on Thursday night in the 26-19 loss to Tulane, Bruce, was a couple of shank punts and where the Pirates had the opportunity to flip the field, and instead gave the Green Wave short fields, a 21-yarder and an 18-yarder. Outside of that, the special teams performed pretty well, but those two punts were definitely black eyes. What can you tell us about the Tulsa special teams?
Pretty good for the most part, although last game they missed a field goal, which early on might have helped in the Memphis game. I think it was 7-0 at the time, and they put a really nice drive together. And as has been the case too often, they stalled near the red zone and missed a fairly chip shot and 34-yard field goal. And so they missed that one. And they also had, the rule on that fair catch on a kickoff. Our guy fair catch on a kickoff at the 2, and he fumbled it. So then he recovers it, but then the ball is dead at the 2. And just really put Tulsa in a bad way. And 3 or 4 plays later, an interception, and all of a sudden Memphis is banging at the door. A 14-7 game turned into a 28-7 game at halftime. And Tulsa had the ball at their 2 after one of those Elijah Green interceptions. They throw an interception, Memphis scores, kickoff. The receiver calls for the fair catch, fumbles it. We're at the 2 again, and then Tulsa throws another interception that didn't get returned, but Memphis is good, and they turned it into a 28-7 lead. So that kind of turned the game into more of a rout for Memphis than it should have been. And the turnovers are something too. I know East Carolina's really good on the turnover margin. Tulsa's not so good. They're at a -4 at this point, and that's got to change.
Well, Bruce, I can tell you from not missing many East Carolina football games over the last few years. Last year at this time, we were dead last in the country, I believe, in turnover margin. So it can turn around really quick. And that cost us a lot of heartache at this point last year. Looking at Seth Morgan as a place kicker, he's 7 for 10, but he looks like he's pretty consistent. Like I think you said, you missed that. He's missed one from the 30 to 39 range, and is 100% on PATs, which for some reason now has become kind of an anomaly. Growing up, you didn't really miss PATs, but I think the defense has just become more athletic and the pressure is a little tighter and the operation's faster. But who's somebody from there's a lot of geography between us and Tulsa, and I've spent a lot of time in Tulsa over the years in business and things like that, and actually love it. There's 2 questions I have for you. Number one, who's somebody who's on the roster right now that East Carolina fans need to be aware of? Maybe they're not, their name's not coming up in the press conferences between the 2 coaches. And then the second piece is, it's different, but who has the better barbecue, Greenville, North Carolina, or Tulsa, Oklahoma? And I'll go from there.
Okay, first question I would bring up, and you mentioned special teams, and I know that the ECU has kind of struggled with their punting. I think your guy averages maybe 40. Well, Angus Davies, who's an Australian punter, is averaging over 45 a kick and 8 or 9 inside the 20. I mean, really does a great job of getting it inside the 20. And that average has gone down when he kicks one from the 38 and it's a 29, 32-yard kick that pins him at the 8. That's happened a couple of times. So Angus Davies, rolls out a little bit, does the usual rolling Australian kicker type punt. So he's an exciting game and exciting guy. And in last game, coach gave him the green light to go ahead and go for it on 4th down. And, he's an Aussie rules guy. So, he's used to getting hit. He's used to drive, he wants to run the ball occasionally, just like he used to down in Australia. He got caught after 7 yards and they didn't get the first down. So maybe that's the last time he'll do that. I don't know. But at any rate, Angus Davies is a guy that you might, want to keep an eye on. Tim Hardiman is a backup defensive lineman. He's a guy that's really active, and this is a defensive line that actually rolls about eight guys in. So they actually have 8 starters. There's no drop-off when the second 4 comes in because sometimes they make a hockey line change. So number 10, Tim Hardiman could be a guy that'll disrupt. If Tulsa's successful, Tim Hardiman would be a guy that might disrupt ECU, their offense a little bit. But those are a couple of guys you might want to look out for. And then I would say I like Tulsa's barbecue better. Tulsa and Memphis barbecue are very similar. There are some places in Tulsa that I even like better than, say, Rendezvous in Memphis. There's certain places that are kind of overrated in Memphis, and but there are some good ones in Tulsa. And I just can't wrap my tongue around is it vinegar kind of in there in the North Carolina? I just
so there's two.
Yeah.
There's a more of a mustard base, which is
Okay.
Western North Carolina. We call that a whole separate. Bubba lives in Western North Carolina, so I only talk to him on this show. But then there's Eastern North Carolina barbecue, which is more vinegar based.
Yeah. See, I can't seem to get. I just don't like it. I don't know why, but doesn't do anything for me. Sorry.
Yeah, no, that's great. But our punt returner actually is one of the transfers from Oklahoma State, so he got out of there before things got bad, and he's been exciting to watch. And actually ran a long fake field goal for a touchdown against Farming. Yeah, that was him.
Yeah.
So it's. But I don't blame you because, like I said, I traveled out there and go down to Texas and stuff, and the barbecue. ECU fans always want to hear about barbecue. I don't even eat it anymore, so I've got no skin in the game.
Well, usually it's where you live is where you think the best barbecue is.
Agree.
Yep, and definitely much different. That's what it's all according to what you've been exposed to the most, but yes, the variety. I always enjoy checking out the local cuisine wherever I travel, kind of like Jason's saying, being in Tulsa on business. But Bruce, we appreciate you spending nearly a half hour with us. How can folks, if they like to check out the opposing broadcast on Thursday night, how can they do so?
Well, the Varsity Sports app, and a lot of folks do that. And if they're in the league, they'll check out the other broadcasts. I do it, quite a bit with Jim and with Corey Glore over there at Tulane, all good announcers. But yeah, Varsity Sports app is probably the best way if you want to click into to our broadcast. And, that's a good way, by the way, for Pirate fans to listen and watch at the same time, because you can do that thing where you listen to the Varsity Sports app and it delays it long enough so that you can use your VCR to pause the video. So it's what my wife does, believe it or not. I can't believe that she wants to listen to the husband, but anyway, that's what we try to do. And so Varsity Sports app is good. Like I said, it takes a while to process it, so you're a minute or two behind, but that helps you if you want to watch and listen at the same time.
That's the one way she'll like to hear you talk, right, Bruce?
Well, she wants to know where I am, so that's the important thing.
Exactly. But hey, before you know it, it's going to be basketball's just around the corner. So enjoy your final few broadcasts on the gridiron before you're double dipping. But very, very excited about this matchup. Very important football game on Thursday night. What will be the fourth Pirate game on that midweek date. But we really appreciate the time and look forward to having you back on the show moving forward.
All right, Bubba, Jason, thank you so much. It's a pleasure.
Thank you, Bruce. Safe travels to Greenville.
All right, take care.
Pirate Nation, that is the play-by-play voice of the Tulsa Golden Hurricane, Bruce Howard. Appreciate him this afternoon. And then be sure to follow us on social media at Blackbeard Alley on X, at Blackbeard's Alley on Instagram. We'll talk to you soon here on this show as we recap Thursday night. And as always, go Pirates.
Painted purple all night long in Eastern North Carolina.